You have become addicted to benzodiazepines. This is a video about what to expect in the first 30 days of detoxification.
Hello Benzo survivors, this is a video about what it's going to be like for the first 30 days of your detoxification from benzos. It's brutal. Of course, that only applies if you have post-acute withdrawal syndrome from benzos. If you don't, you'll probably be feeling pretty good in about 2 weeks. But if you have P.A.W.S, it's going to be a rough process, and I don't want to sugarcoat this, because if you make a commitment to do this, you're just going to be torturing yourself if you quit. And I got the picture of this guy, and it's a joke, but at the same time it's not. It's very difficult. You can hallucinate, you can hear things, you can see things. You're going to be agitated by bright lights, by noises. You're going to be in that no man's land to where you're going to want to be around people because you're really nervous, but at the same time being around them is awkward because you're going to be going through the withdrawals. You're going to feel like your soul is being sucked out of your body. Now, if you're on a taper, that might be different. I didn't get the opportunity to play that game. Okay, I used to taper myself so that my medication would work better, and it usually took about 2 weeks or so after kind of torturing myself a little bit by giving myself about half the amount that I normally would, and my medication will work for another year because you have, tolerance problems when you're taking these types of drugs. So if you're on a taper, this probably doesn't apply. It may apply after that, okay? Because I did a 3-day taper, and I also had several attempts at this, and it's always the same thing. It's brutal. The doctors have a resolve, and it's gonna be tough, and we're not gonna give you anything. And then after you don't sleep and your eyes start to cross, then they start offering you pills, and yeah, they're the ones that usually give up. And misdiagnosis is a huge problem because most doctors don't have the information. Okay, they don't. And that's a problem. They will say that you need to go back on the medication because you should be detoxed. Okay, it's been so many days and we don't know why you're still going through withdrawals. Maybe something else is wrong with you. Okay. Other times it's an insurance problem. If you're in a crisis center or something like that, they're going to want to try and get you out of there, and they'll tell you basically whatever they can to get you out because they don't want you there, especially if your insurance is expired. And sometimes that happens, and sometimes they run into problems to get payments from them and all that kind of stuff. So you gotta be in the right place. You're gonna want to do this under medical supervision of some kind. I would recommend a treatment facility or something to where they can monitor your blood pressure and make sure you don't go into withdrawals or a seizure. Assuming you haven't watched my other videos, you're gonna say, what information? Well, the information is, and I came across it about a year into the detoxification process, and that was a study up in Europe they did in 1993 to figure out why people were so addicted to benzos and why it was so hard to detox them from the drug. And they found out that a regular dose for about 2 weeks actually formed a protein in the brain that would send signals to the nervous system and put people into a state of withdrawal or panic. Okay, do I have all the specific information? No, because it was only up there for a little while. And I didn't know if it was true or not. Okay, remember, this is only about a year in to my process, which took around 2 years and 8 months. I used to take around 10 to 14 milligrams of lorazepam per day, and for a while I also took 20 milligrams of Ambien. Okay. So it was a real rough process. It was basically like cold turkey. Okay, and it's really brutal. As far as I know, none of the doctors out there really have access to this information because it's been covered up. There may be people who are experienced with post-acute withdrawal syndrome that have literature that talks about people, I don't know, getting better within around a year or two or something like that. But as far as this information, they're probably not going to have it. So the risk of being misdiagnosed is always going to be there. Once again, I'm not a doctor. I can only tell you about my experience and how I got out. Your doctor will decide what's best for you. Taking narcotic medications while you're trying to detox is not going to work. Okay, if you're on a taper or something like that, fine. But just know that for me anyway, the healing process didn't begin until I got away from all that stuff. I had things that they were going to, give me to try and make it a little bit better. Supposedly it was going to keep me from going into the withdrawals, phenobarbital or something else. And it made it worse. It felt good short term, but then after it wore off, it came on 3 times worse, of course, and that's the way it is. If you have a problem with alcohol or were thinking about trying to use alcohol to detox, don't do it. It's like pouring gas on a fire. Really bad idea. It almost killed me. And I want you to be prepared because this is tough, but you might not experience the hard road that I did. Okay, I've seen people that didn't have to deal with, the insomnia for a month. Okay, I know a guy that had post-acute withdrawal that I was roommates with, and yeah, he was getting sleep in probably about 10 days or something like that. And, he was doing a lot better than me. He was on a lower dose and didn't take it as long as I did. So it just depends, okay? But you need to be prepared because I didn't know what I was dealing with. I really made it a lot harder on myself because I began the detox process, I think it was somewhere in the end of July or so. And I didn't get to the point where I was starting to heal really until probably December, probably the beginning of December. And the reason is because I didn't know what I was dealing with, and the doctors would see, how bad I was. I came to the hospital, and I was going through alcohol withdrawals because I tried to use alcohol to detoxify with first, and I got to the point where I didn't even know what was going on. It was pretty bad. And I actually showed up on my birthday and didn't know what day it was, so they thought that was funny. I didn't, see the humor in it, but whatever. If you want to laugh about it, that's okay. And then it was hit and miss because they would put me back on the meds, and I didn't know. I had no idea that I had to do it this way. I had no idea what I was in for. If I would have known, I would have done it a lot sooner. But that's the problem. You think it's just so rough that you just go back on the pills. And I did that off and on until November, I think it was November 15th of 2013, and that was my last dose. And it wasn't until around December 7th that I started to get sleep with the aid of sedative antidepressants and antipsychotics. I was basically awake for 22 days after my last dose, and that could happen. It depends on what you've been taking. Most people don't take as much as I was, so it's probably going to be a lot less brutal for you, and you're not going to make the mistakes that I did up to that point. You're going to know what's going on, and I didn't. I started at the end of July, and there were times where the first time I went, it was, 6 weeks or more without eating or sleeping. I lost 70 pounds. I guess you could count the beer. I was drinking beer, so that was a type of calorie. I guess it was a type of food. But yeah, I lost a lot of weight and I didn't sleep at all. That was a really, really bad idea. So if you know what you're in for and you're taking your taper or you're off your taper, then it's going to be, a week or 3 before you can you go to sleep. The other thing you're going to need to be prepared for is just going in and out of this state of panic. Okay, the state of withdrawal, because that's the way it is. It's going to be that way all the way up until that protein leaves your brain. Okay, and it's going to last through the whole time you're trying to do this if you have post-acute withdrawal, and who knows, it's probably going to be around 2 years, but it's going to be different. It's going to get better. Okay, so the waves that come in are going to take longer. At first, they're going to be very quick. You're going to go in and out. It's going to be constant. And then, after about 30 days, you're going to start to experience, at least I did, days where I felt okay. And it's going to be a little bit better, and then it's going to come back. And it gets really confusing when you get out there to 6 months to a year, because you're going to feel like you're out of the woods maybe for a few days or a week or a couple weeks or whatever, maybe even a month, and then it's going to come back really hard. Okay, that's when people start getting diagnosed with panic disorder and other things, because it's just like it was right in the beginning. It might only last, a day. It might last 3 days. At the end of the process, for me, it grabbed on for months. It was like dealing with an entity. It was just beyond. It was really good after about a year into the process, and then right at about the last 4 months, it just grabbed on, and it was just constant panic. Okay, I don't know why. Like I said, I don't have all the information. I can just tell you what I experienced, and then when it broke, it never came back. It just stopped, literally, and it never came back, ever. And you can expect that after around 2 years. Like I said, it took me a little bit longer. It took 2 years and 8 months. The other concern is your environment. Okay, yeah, you're going to want to be in a place that's calm, that doesn't have a lot of loud noises, where people are very patient with you. That's the other thing. The people around you are going to have to be informed. You're going to be very needy. You're going to be very moody. And you want to be surrounded by people who understand, care, and are very patient with you. And also, along with the sleep aspect of this, I forgot to mention that you might run into people who don't understand. So you might be in a treatment facility. They might want you to go lay down in the dark next to your roommate and listen to them snore. And of course, you're not going to be able to sleep. You might have to stand up for yourself in that, in that type of situation, because it's not going to be healthy for you to be going through the withdrawals and just sitting there staring at nothing. Okay, I had to do that. I had to fight with the nurses.
That's against our policy. You have to go lay down. You have to close your eyes and try to sleep.
And you're not going to be able to. Okay, so that's going to drive you crazy. The other thing is the food thing. Okay, you're going to want to try and eat. You might have to force feed yourself a little bit. I wouldn't suggest you eat a lot, because you could throw up, you can get nervous or whatever, and that can happen when you're going through the withdrawals. But you're going to want to try and stay as healthy as possible, keeping those vitamins and minerals in your body so you can heal. Okay, and the other thing is you might want to schedule some type of sedative medication or arrange your taper around meal times. Okay, maybe an hour or two before you eat, whatever you're taking, because otherwise, you might be too nervous to where, you're not going to be able to eat. I had to do that, where I had to kind of fight with the doctors, because unless I had, something to calm me down a little bit, I just wouldn't be able to keep the food down. And you're going to want to try and stay as healthy as possible so you can fight. This is a battle. The other thing is the sedative medications. Like I said, I'm not a doctor, but I can tell you what worked for me. And I can also tell you that you want to be informed, and you want to know what you're taking, and you want to be aware of the side effects, because a lot of people react differently to different drugs. Okay, some things that other people may have benefited from were bad for me. There was a drug called Effexor, and that was basically like taking an amphetamine. It was a really bad idea. That's just one example. Or Seroquel, okay, especially in combination with other drugs. You can have bad reactions. You have to look at the drugs themselves, and then you look at the possible different combination side effects that you're going to be dealing with. I would recommend you keep it as simple as possible. And a lot of times, patients become very agitated. They're having a lot of distress, and they want the doctor to make them feel better. And, sometimes they get on a bunch of stuff, and it just makes it worse. You got to be careful, okay? Know what you're on. Be aware of the possible side effects and reactions. I took metrazapine, which is Remeron. I took trazodone. I took Vistral. I took risperidone. And risperidone worked pretty good short term, but that can affect your hormones. Okay, just remember, there's no total fix for this. It's going to be rough. If you're looking for complete relief, or you want your withdrawal symptoms to completely go away, it's not going to happen. Okay, it's going to be brutal, and it's going to happen over time. The other thing you're going to have to be prepared for is to live your life again, because it's worth it. It is very difficult, but it is worth it. And in 2 years, if you stick with this, you're going to thank yourself, and hopefully you're going to thank me.
Benzo Survivor is not authorized to treat or diagnose medical conditions. The purpose is to share my experience with benzo addiction and detox.